Forensic Week is brought to you by Tom Mariello, professor at the University of Maryland, College Park, and produced by Laura Pachuki and Jamal Francis.
Welcome, viewers, to episode 72 of the ForensicWeek.com show, brought to you by Forensic IQ Incorporated. I'm your host, Tom Moriello, CEO of Forensic IQ and professor at the University of Maryland, Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice in College Park, Maryland. Tonight, missing identity children from the Holocaust, forensic identification at its most challenging. We are bringing back to the ForensicWeek.com screen Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick to tell us how forensic genealogy skills have been used to learn the true identity, names, and family histories of Holocaust survivors. But first, let me introduce our ForensicWeek.com producer this evening, Laura Pachuki, a graduate student from the George Washington University Forensic Sciences Department. And we also, although he's not with us this evening, Jamal Francis, a University of Maryland undergraduate sociology major, a co-producer. I want to mention him. He's on his way to California for the spring break that the university has. But this last week, he produced a trailer video for us for the ForensicWeek.com YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, he did a fantastic job. It kind of welcomes new viewers so they understand the show and how to get to various subjects, etc. He did a great job. I want to thank him, and safe trip to California. Laura, tell our viewers how to ask questions, make comments, and keep watching.
All right. Hi, everyone, and thank you for watching ForensicWeek.com. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future shows, please email us at forensicweek@gmail.com. If you're watching this show live and you have a question for our guest, you can use the comment box below and we'll bring that up and ask on air. You can also tweet us at Forensic Week. If you like this episode, please click the subscribe button on YouTube. You can watch all archive shows 24/7 online at forensicweek.com. You can also find us on Facebook by searching the ForensicWeek.com show. Like and share our page. Thanks, and back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Laura. Folks, you're watching ForensicWeek.com, a talk show that features real forensic science by real forensic scientists, educators, law enforcement, and legal professionals who find, collect, and examine forensic evidence in the performance of their duties. Broadcast live on your desktop and mobile devices, normally on Thursday evening, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we're starting at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel, www.forensicweek.com. We are a proud member of the Hangout10.com live TV webcast network, which is a series of shows just like this one, brought to you live using Google+, a social networking service. We haven't been on doing a show since we returned from the American Academy of Forensic Sciences annual meeting. Wanted to tell you a little bit about that. If you remember, the AAFS 67th Annual Scientific Meeting was held in Orlando, Florida, February 16th to the 21st at the Hyatt Regency, Orlando, Florida. Great job. They had 4,273 attendees, forensic scientists from all over the world. They had 565 oral presentations, over 300 poster presentations, over 500 international attendees representing 62 countries around the world. I had the opportunity to present a scientific paper entitled The Flipped Classroom, Turning Your Forensic Education Program Upside Down. The paper was presented to introduce forensic science community about the new pedagogy being used today by universities throughout the country. Also, I presented a half-day workshop entitled Your Attention Please, a public speaking skills workshop. The workshop was presented to improve presentation skills from one-on-one communications to courtroom testimony, classroom teaching, and keynote presentations. I had the honor and pleasure to have forensic artist Sandy Enslow from the LA County Sheriff's Office, a guest of Forensic Week, as my chair. And I must say that we had over 65 students. It was well received, not only by seasoned professionals, but a lot of new professionals wanting to fine-tune their public speaking skills. Laura Paducah, believe it or not, my own producer, didn't bother to tell me she was attending this meeting, and I'm in Orlando, and all of a sudden, who stands up in front of me but Laura Paducah? Laura, this was your first time attending the American Academy of Forensic Science meeting. As a student, as a graduate student, tell us a little about your experience, what you attended, the benefits you thought you achieved by attending.
All right. Well, it was a great opportunity. I had been wanting to go this year since you had mentioned it last year about going. So I had it really set in my mind to go. It was awesome, a lot better than I could have imagined. And so I did get to go. I went all Wednesday and all Thursday. It's a whole week thing. But for Wednesday and Thursday, I went all day. I went to some breakfast workshops, and then I went to some of the scientific paper presentations, and I also went and walked around the poster sessions and just got to see a lot of the different fields of forensic science and what people are working on and what they're experimenting on. I also got to network with a lot of great people and meet a lot of our guests that we've had on the show here, and I got to make some new connections, and now I am in the process of looking into joining as a member, as a trainee affiliate, and also applying for some jobs that I heard about while I was down there.
I would say that you got everything that somebody like you, a student, needs to get. The networking is probably one of the most important things. And you're absolutely right. We get to sit down and meet with a lot of our guests, some that we never met live before, only saw on the screen. Although our guest tonight is somebody that I've seen before, but it was the first time for you. So that was good. I think you need to continue. And Derek Wong, our former co-producer, who's now working for the Baltimore City Crime Lab for Steve Odell, one of our former guests. I keep telling him he needs to start going to these meetings also, and hopefully he will. Thank you very much. And, you know, while we were there, we met a number of the forensic artists. You know, our good friend Sandy Enslow was there. We attended a number of meetings together. She just sent me a newsletter that she does for the what was done for the forensic artists. If you haven't put it up, would you please put it up? One of the things that's nice about this is Samantha Steinberg from Miami-Dade Police Department, who's also a forensic artist and a colleague of Sandy. Sandy introduced me to her, and I'm excited about the fact that Samantha is going to be a guest on our show in the next couple of months. We're trying to schedule her now that her agencies approved her to do that. So we talked about forensic artists in the services they provide on the West Coast. We're going to learn from Samantha Steinberg the kinds of things and services they provide, that she provides not only for Miami-Dade PD, but she can give us a sense of any differences or similarities here on the East Coast. Sandy was promoted to full member, and it was my honor to be promoted to fellow at this meeting. So it was a great meeting, a lot accomplished, and I was glad to see you there, Laura. One other thing that happened just last week, February 27th, I had another honor to attend the United States Secret Service Uniform Division graduation, class 234. And who was graduating but one of our previous co-producers, Mark Lombard. Mark was a student of mine. He was an intern. He worked on this show the first year that we produced it. A fine gentleman, and I know he's going to do so well. He is now a member of the Uniform Division of the United States Secret Service. He and his parents and his sister and his girlfriend were all there at Rowley Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. It was a true honor to be asked to be there, and he started working that following Monday, and he's been working 12-hour days, has already been on some trips. So the best of luck to him. Thank you, and thank you to your parents for being so nice when I was there. So good luck, and I know you're going to have a successful career. Okay, let's go right to our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and pleasure again to introduce Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, who was also at the meeting in Orlando. We had a number of meetings together. We sat and listened to various presentations, had dinner together with Laura and a number of people talking business, etc. She's coming to us from the beautiful Huntington Beach, California. What's interesting about Dr. Fitzpatrick is her PhD is in nuclear physics from Duke University. After 25 years, she developed, during those 25 years as a nuclear physicist, she developed high-resolution laser and optical measurement techniques for various government agencies, not only in America, but also other government and civilian organizations. In 2005, she retired to become the co-author of 3 of the best-selling books in genealogy and an internationally recognized forensic genealogist. She is the co-founder of Identifinders International in Huntington Beach. Identifinders is provides international services for forensic genealogy solutions worldwide, services for adoptees, DNA identification, missing persons, identity fraud investigations, all these various subjects she's involved with. She has been a consultant for many organizations, including the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory, the U.S. Casualty and Mortuary Affairs Office, numerous police departments and sheriff's office, and private organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick. Wow, that was a long one, Colleen, but you are certainly a person who certainly deserves that introduction. Thank you so much for being with us again today. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Looking forward to doing it.
How is the weather out there in California? Because I'll be out there. My wife and I are going to be out there tomorrow ourselves.
Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. You're going to want to stay. We're not going to let you go home.
Well, I'm sure my daughter would love to hear that too, because she's in LA. Let's go right into this. What is the Missing Identity Children of the Holocaust DNA Project? That's a long title. Tell us what that is in your association with it.
Well, Tom, there are quite a few child survivors of the Holocaust that survived without their identities. And so the DNA Project was founded to try and help them find their identities again.
Now, when you say without their identity, what do you mean that Holocaust survivors without their identities? What does that mean?
Well, when the Holocaust was happening, a lot of parents wanted to get their children to safety. So a lot of them were hidden in farms, in attics, in Catholic orphanages, and even in holes in the ground. And these children were sometimes moved when, for safety reasons, many times. And of course, many of the parents never survived. So in the end of that, the children, nobody knew who they were, and they were too young to really know themselves who they were. So now there's perhaps hundreds of these adults now in their 70s who just have not even a clue what country they came from. So the DNA study was founded. It's a pilot study to try and help identify several of these people, seeing if it would work so we can help more people. And so the source of the people we're helping is the missing-identity.net website. I think I gave you a graphic for that. And I recommend that your listeners go to see this website because these are they feature 80 people. The next slide shows you a rogue gallery. 80 of these missing identity individuals who have researched their entire lives trying to find out who they are. And most of them have research journals that you can read, and it's incredible what they've found out and the kind of research they've done. They are very, very special people.
How did you get involved in this project?
Well, I have a lot of experience in Holocaust research. I've been part of the exposure of 3 derailment or exposure of 3 major Holocaust literary frauds. And to kind of turn that into a positive sense, I've taken an interest in survivors and, their lives, and I've met many of them. So I came across this website and I got very involved with helping these people.
Are you the only forensic genealogist involved? Are there others? And tell us how these survivors get to utilize some of your services.
Well, right now in our in our particular pilot study, we have 2 women. I'll talk about one in a minute, but our research group really involves people from there's Kate Bloomquist from Minnesota, there's Hanya Allen from Scotland, there's Franek Grabowski who's in Poland, who can read Polish. Ava Florsheim owns the site. She's in Norway, and we have a couple of researchers, Sharon Levy and one of the children, Panina Gutman lives in Israel. So we have about 6 or 7 people from all over the world that, fortunately, they're in places, they're very good researchers, but they're also in places where they can go access records if we need them, like in Israel at the Yad Vashem or in Poland at the Jewish Historical Institute. You know, we have people that can speak those languages that can draw on those resources.
For viewers who didn't view the previous show we did with you, where we spent a lot of time defining forensic genealogists, why don't in two minutes and less, kind of give a big picture of what forensic genealogy is, and then walk us through the process that you might use to help somebody.
Well, you know, forensic genealogists are really experts at kinship and relationship analysis. They're kind of like specialists. I'd say a PI is more of a GP, a practitioner, and a forensic genealogist is more a specialist on looking more deeply into the records, or more deeply into the psychology of what, you know, may have happened or where somebody had gone. Now, in a very formal sense, it's assisting for legal identification, but there's a broader sense where it can also refer to your own research on your own family. I do a lot of adoption searches that are very tricky, almost impossible adoption searches, and that involves more than just looking up the records. You know, it involves talking to the person, understanding what they know or what they've heard or what they suspect, what their gut feelings are, and then really database mining huge amounts of data to find out that one or two facts that really pertain to their identity.
Okay.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Well, what I wanted to ask is, how many Holocaust victims are there that still do not know their own family heritage or their own real names?
I would say there's hundreds, really. I know there's 80 on those websites, and there's a broad spectrum. So there's people that have absolutely no idea what country they were from, all the way to people that know a lot of it, but not really all of it. Because when the Holocaust happened, that whole generation was just gone, was annihilated. So there's a big disconnect between the people today and their deep history. There's this chasm of all those people that were destroyed during the Holocaust.
Bring us through maybe a case that you've worked, or allow us, the viewers, to understand how you use your skills, maybe together with DNA analysis. I would assume at some point in time that becomes a key factor in your final examination and results. But let's get the viewers to understand exactly what you do when you're examining a case like this.
Okay, I provided you with an image of one of the children on that website. She's referred to as the no-name girl for a very good reason. And her story is just perfect for this, because her story is that in July of 1942, basically a couple was passing through a train station in Poland, and a woman came out of the crowd in the train station and said, basically, will you take my baby? You know, the baby was crying. There's a picture of the train station where it's located in Roswado. That's how you say it in English. And so they took the child. They didn't say anything. They didn't have children of their own. And they brought her home and raised her and never said anything about it. And so when she was maybe 60, about 10 years ago, the parents were gone. An older relative, you know, let the cat out the bag and told a story about the train station. That was the adoption process. Basically, the mother handed the kid over, and that was it. So
now,
the woman...
Did she stay in Poland? So was she brought up in Poland?
Yes. She was brought up. The two people, married couple, walking to the station were a married couple. Yes, they were from... In fact, the man worked for the railroad. We don't know why he may have just been passing through at work or with his wife on a trip. But they took the baby and they raised her as their own and called her Brania, and she now still lives in Poland. And about 10 years ago, an older relative let the cat out the bag, and they were stunned. I mean, she felt like she hadn't quite fit, like a lot of adoptees do, but the circumstances really blew her away. So her son went and got her mitochondrial DNA tested, because at that time that was what was available for women, and she came out to be Ashkenazi Jewish. So you take the Ashkenazi, the train station.
Wait a minute, hold on. Mitochondrial DNA told you that?
Yeah, it told us that the mitochondrial DNA is handed down along the female line of her family. So it told us that her mother was Jewish. We didn't have any information about her father, but we found out her mother was Jewish because it came from her mother. And there have been scientific studies of different kinds of DNA and how they relate to various ethnic groups. And her DNA matched the analysis that she was Ashkenazi Jewish through her mother.
Interesting. Okay, go on.
So you put the Ashkenazi Jewish mother, the disheveled, dirty woman in bad shape in the train station giving up her baby, July 1942, southern Poland, you figure out what's going on. This is a mother with a last-ditch effort to save her baby. The mother was probably on the way to a death camp. We don't know, but the circumstantial evidence points to that. So at that point, what does she do? Because she's raised in a loving family, she thinks she knows where she belongs, and suddenly she doesn't even know what country she was from. She could have been on any transport from anywhere in Europe to that train station. So what I did was this. I went with the cooperation of 23andMe, which is an autosomal testing company.
How did she find you?
I found her because I went to the Missing Identity website, missing-identity.net, and I had been browsing through the gallery, and I contacted Eva Florsheim in Norway, and I said, hey, I have this idea for a DNA study for these missing identity kids. And she said, well, let me think, and she came up with a couple of women that would be suitable, and this no-name girl train station baby was one of them.
Wow,
okay. So I connected. We got her tested with 23andMe, and I have a slide of, say, a very beginning short list of some of her matches. And when she, her results came in, there were several people, there were lots of people on her list. She had a number of second and third cousins. 23andMe gives you their names, depending, some of them are anonymous, and you have to accept contact with them. So I have a graphic there if you want to put it up of 23andMe results. And so she had, we had something to go on. We had established through this kind of DNA test, some, not that one, it says 23andMe. Take that down, that's not it. Okay, it says 23andMe across the top. Anyway, I'll continue. So okay. If you can find it, Laura, that would be great. So anyway, she came up, autosomal DNA kind of helps you find DNA cousins, but it doesn't tell you how you're connected to them. You have to sit down and start talking to them. So this woman had a number of DNA cousins. Now we add a disadvantage because, say, Tom, if it was you and me and we came up to be cousins, you know where you came from, and so do I. So together we can puzzle something out. But in this case, this woman had absolutely not any idea what country, and so most of her matches, her DNA cousins, had themselves fragmented knowledge of their history. Either if they were survivors, of course, they've lost a lot, if they were children of survivors, but also a lot of her matches were descendants of immigrants around the turn of the 20th century from the Eastern Bloc countries. And that's not it either. So I'll get to that in a minute, they didn't know either. So I said, I have all these DNA cousins. They know a lot of stuff. There's a lot of data there. What can I do with that data that maybe it's not what I thought I could do, but what can I do? So what I did was this, and you can bring that up again, Laura, the one with the 4 people along the site. I asked them, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And I made a map of their answers. If you can put that map up, here it is. You see the 4 top matches along the right, and pins associated on a Google map about where they were from. The top man is Stan. He was her top match at that time, a second or third cousin, and he is represented by, I think it's green bubbles. One is in Romania and one is in the Ukraine. Is that right? I can't see it, but the Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah.
His parents met in the United States. That's why they're so far apart geographically on the map. So I did that with all of her matches. These are the top 4. The man named Tomar, his father was from Romania and his mother was from Egypt. So the mother's not even on the map. So I'm throwing all these pins on the map. Now realize she's not related to every person associated with every pin. I'm trying to find out where she's connected to all these people. So I figure that people that share DNA share geography. So if I throw this all on the map and I see little bubbles where people have crossed paths, in their ancestry, I can find out where she's from. Okay, so I did this with 20 or 30 of her matches. And can I have the next slide there?
Can I ask you a question? The PowerPoint slides, are they the same thing?
Yeah.
Why don't I'm going to do that, Laura. I'm going to get the power. Just give me a second, and I will do that. Entire share, and as I'm talking my way through this,
I can tell you the click when it's time.
Okay, go ahead.
Click, please. Click, please. Click. Okay, that's the train station. Here's Stan. You see his 2 parents. Next one, Tomar. You see he's from Romania. The next one, his father's from Romania. The next one is Aitan from Belarus. His parents met in Israel, and that's why they live so far apart. Okay, where their families live so far apart. And there's Isaac, and he's from wherever he's from Romania and the Ukraine again. All right, so I said, let me do this with all 20 or 30 of her best matches. She had about 1,000 up to distant cousins. So when I did that, okay, next slide, this is what I found out. She's related really to most of Europe, which is, if you think about it, the Jews are very intermarried, and they don't really marry outside of their own culture. So when you see this is probably the history of the Jews in Europe, and she's related to most of them. So where do you go with that? How do you deal with that? Well, what I did was, next slide, click please. I actually went back. I said, wait, don't click yet. I'm doing overkill. I said, let me just go back to her top maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 until I get some kind of pattern developing. And when I did that, I got 2 groups. I got one, there's a red line that's separating those 2 groups. One of the groups is above the line, which is really kind of centered in southern Poland. And there's one below the line in Romania and the Baltic, around the Baltic Sea. It's at the Black Sea, excuse me. So I said, this is very interesting, and this might represent her ancestry. So click once, please. I had 2 groups that emerged from this. One of them was in southern Poland, and incidentally right around that train station, and the other one was in Romania, on the Romania-Moldova border. So click once, please. So I hypothesized, because her mother gave her up in the train station, that her mother was from around that train station. And one more, and this other bubble here must be her father, because there's other tools I've used to determine, I can't go into those, her mother and father were not related, which is kind of interesting. And when her autosomal was analyzed in more detail, we found out, obviously we know her mother's Ashkenazi Jewish. It turned out she's only half Jewish, that her other DNA is not Jewish. So we have a Jewish mother from southern Poland around the train station, and a non-Jewish father, probably from Romania, Moldova, down near the Black Sea. Now this is huge. For me, it wouldn't make any difference because I know where I'm from. But when you don't even know what country you're from, this is big. Makes a big difference, and it matters. So one other thing happened which is noteworthy, and that in speaking to these matches, we found out 2 of them, please next slide, 2 of them are, so wait, go ahead, click one more time. I zoomed in on that, this is the map of Europe again, and I said, let me look more closely at around that train station, that group. One more click, please. And this is like a zoom in of that area. one click, we have a cluster in that area close up around Warsaw. Now, this is a big metropolitan area, so it would not be surprising she had distant relatives there. Click again. This is where the train station is, and click again. This is, you see all that ancestry, all those different icons, all those different families that come from around that area. She is most likely from around that train station. And furthermore, you see two blue pins and then a little blue eye and then a blue pin going up. That follows a river. So that says that her ancestry was probably in that area for quite some time as her ancestors settled along the river over the generations. So this is big for her because this gives us geographical anchor of where to look for records, of where to look for who she might be and who to test more, find more survivors from around that train station area, and maybe we could come up with even closer relatives that might know their ancestry. Now, one other thing happened. Click once, please. Oh, that's for each match we have. Click once. So for her, we found the geography of where she's connected to all these people. One more. We found which side of her family. It's her mother's side that these people relate on. And one more. We found which ancestor in those family trees connects with her. So we have a lot of information now on people that are related to her and how they are related to her through, what ancestor they relate to her through. We have so much more information now than we had before. So one more. This is the slide. I think there's one more of a family tree with her in the middle.
That was it.
Oh, there's a graphic. There's a graphic. There's a graphic. You put it up earlier, and I said that wasn't the right one. Yeah, this is interesting because two of her DNA cousins turned out to be related to each other, and we know how. They relate to each other through a rabbi that was born in 1811, and they know their ancestry, and it turned out she shares the same DNA with them as they share with each other because of this rabbi. So therefore, she's a descendant of the rabbi too. So now the task is to find the rabbi's family. Some of these Jewish rabbi genealogies are worked out in great detail. So what we'd like to do is find a descendant of that rabbi that lived in the region around the train station. And we have something really substantial to go on at that point. And that's where we are with her.
All right, so you're still working this case.
We are. It's going to be a while. We hope to get sponsors to do larger amounts of testing of survivors, especially those like her, more of a bigger pilot study to see if we could find somebody who is, you know, more closer relative that, say, we can actually connect through the records and not a second or third cousin, maybe a first cousin or better.
You seem to rely on records. What kind of records exist out there? I mean, are you finding records, and where are they being held?
Well, in her case, there aren't many. We're looking for the person that has the knowledge. The records are in his head. You know, for her, there's nothing. But for the Jewish community, there's tons. There's the U.S. Holocaust Museum. There's the Yad Vashem. There's the Jewish Historical Institute. There's the Ghetto Fighters Museum in Israel. There is the Warsaw State Archives in Poland. You can go on Berlin. They have a lot of records, you know, there too of the Nazi regime. There are records there. You just have to look for them. Now, they're not all there. A lot of, like, records from Auschwitz and so on have been lost, but still, there are so many out there. You got to give it a try.
Interesting. Give us some more details about the project itself, the Missing Identity Children of the Holocaust DNA Project, and where are they located? Did you say?
Well, they're located right here in my living room, actually. But the children are located all over the world. The project
is there right anybody else in there? Is there anyone else in that room besides you?
Not right now, but okay. Virtually there's plenty. There is plenty. I really run the project. I'm working with an attorney in Israel right now. We'd like to do some fundraising to get some more survivors tested. There's a lot of reluctance among the survivors. They're becoming, you know, 70s, 80s sometime. There's a reluctance. They don't understand DNA. They have more concerns now after searching all their lives for family. Maybe there's nobody left, you know, and now they're at the time in the life they're more interested in economic survival and making sure they have, their needs provided for, and they have children, of course, and that takes their attention. So yet we're still hoping that we can get some enthusiasm and some interest as a very new way to try and find relatives. And I did want to tell you, I mentioned to you earlier, there was a survivor from Auschwitz. He was a 3-year-old boy when he was put in Auschwitz, and he was a twin, and he was used as one of Mengele's twins for the experiments, and he survived. And he went on Facebook about a year or two ago trying to find his twin brother, because he's got a number on his arm and his brother has the next number. So he went on Facebook, he got some help from a forensic genealogist in Israel, and she worked with him through a lot of pain and stuff, and 23andMe donated a kit to have him tested, and he came up with a first cousin he didn't know about, and that family now lives in the United States. His aunt, his mother's sister, went to the U.S. in the 1920s, and after the letter stopped coming back, she knew something was wrong, and they went on with their lives. And suddenly, now he's got first cousins, and these first cousins, thanks to DNA, produce photographs of his mother and father that he couldn't remember because he was taken away when he was 3 years old. They perished in the Holocaust, but this is so meaningful for him because he has never met, other than children he might have, he's never met anyone he's related to. It puts him in context. They told him the whole story of his family. He now knows who he is.
I can just imagine how important that is for somebody to, it's easy for us who know where we came from, etc., but not having any idea. You mentioned, how is the project financed? I mean, this takes a lot of time and a lot of money. You have DNA testing, that costs money. How is all this getting financed?
Well, right now we only have 2 cases that we've been working on. It's all volunteers. Really, the time is the big investment of all of us researchers on our team, and we all donate as we can. The kits were supplied by 23andMe. It's several kits, not a lot. And so, as I said, we hope to do some fundraising. We do have donors. We have to, assess the enthusiasm of the survivors and that type of thing. So right now, it's all voluntary. Except for if we want to get a couple of extra kits from 23andMe, we may have to pay for that. But really, it's just at the very early stages. I'd love to bring it bigger. I'd love to have more survivors because I think everybody's going to be surprised at the results. I really think that there are family connections out there really to be found, and it would be wonderful to be able to do this.
Are there other forensic genealogists besides some of your colleagues that are working with you on this, or is this a one-person show in the area of genealogy?
As I said, in this particular project, I work with people on all kinds of projects, but in this particular one, we have an international membership here. It's a membership, it's just people that have really skills that have volunteered their time in Poland, Norway, Israel, Scotland, and the U.S. And so
there are people out there who are very interested in what you're doing and may have some skills that might want to help. Are you looking for people to help that can donate time, may have some of the skills that you need in this project?
Well, the best people could really help are, for example, somebody in Poland that could speak Polish and could make some phone calls for us. Somebody who lives in Berlin would be very valuable, spectacularly valuable. Somebody who has, even here, that has knowledge of the records that are out there and he knows who to call or what to look for. Those would be valuable. People that have, networks in the Jewish community who might, know other people that are searching. I'd say this is kind of a specialty work, and it can be very tricky, very hard. It takes, the time is thinking about what else to look, because this has never been done. This is very novel work, and it's groundbreaking. So you have to think. The amount of time since 2012, you do stuff, you make calls, but it's planning and talking and trying to understand the networks, the underground networks, the Polish resistance, the Warsaw Ghetto Fighters, the Home Office, the Home Army, ZOB. Also, you have to have like somebody with a knowledge of the political situation at that time, how a baby could be rescued, where did it go, who took care of it, how did it get placed, how did it get its phony documents to survive. You know, those people with those knowledge would be those people with that kind of knowledge would be very valuable too. You know?
If people want to get a hold of you who might have some of those skills or those contacts, what's the best way to do that? Is that you want to give me an email address or whatever, and then we'll put it up on our YouTube channel with this video show, or tell us what it is right now.
Okay, Colleen at identifinders.com. That's Identity Finders. So Colleen at identifinders.com. You can get me there. That's email. You know, I travel a lot, so that will get to me. Fine, and I answer all the email. You know, if you don't hear back from me, just write me again. I just skip my mind or something. And I did want to make one comment about this, and that is, as you said, Tom, we don't understand what identity is. We know our mother, father, sister, brother, and I work with adoptees. I've done some international, almost even domestic impossible adoption searches. And when you see that connection, that person knows who he is, it's an instant different person in front of you. It's like the clouds open and he's full, where he had this black space before. And when you look at these Holocaust kids, it's even better than that. The epiphany is even better because, you know, they've been looking all their lives. They have it's not just the mom and dad's name, it's the culture. It's the restoration of a culture and a very deep ancestry that you're giving back to them. And that's the meaning of this work.
Great. If there are viewers out there who are personally interested or know of family members or friends or colleagues who you think might be interested, please bring that up. Invite them to see this show, and I will make sure that Colleen's email address is on the description of the show, so when they bring it up, they'll see it right there, because I think that it truly could make a difference. And as you say, when they make that connection, it's an exciting thing to experience. Tell us what else is going on in the forensic genealogy business.
Well, you know, there's a lot going on. I'm involved myself in a lot of projects. As I said, adoption searches. You know, I've done military type things. I work on a lot of cold cases, which are interesting. Right now, I'm working on Abraham Lincoln's DNA project. In that regard, there are some medical people interested in knowing if he had genetic disorders. So, in order to test that, we have to get his genome. And there's a lot of stuff with blood out there on it, obviously. So we have to, you know, we have finally, I think, permission. We have a few relics that we want to test, and we have tested a couple of them. And I can't go into I can tell you basically what we're doing. There's no time for the whole thing. And so to test those relics, we have to authenticate the relics to make sure they're really his. But to authenticate them, you need a forensic genealogist like myself, because that's really very tricky history. Because there's not a lot of records on who his mother was. You wind up using mitochondrial DNA. You don't have a lot of records on who his mother was. So, and that because he's so well known, there's layers of hearsay and layers of family history that you have to dig back to try and find the truth about who he was, so you can get family references, you know, a person from his extended family to give their DNA, so we can authenticate the relics and therefore get the right genome and therefore do the testing for the genetic disorders we'd like to do. So that's kind of an interesting project that's been going on for a couple of years now.
You've mentioned to me, because knowing that I'm from Boston, that Boston University has a program. I know that you teach up there. Tell us a little bit about the program up at Boston University, if you would.
It's through the Center for Professional Excellence. It's a forensic, well, I teach the advanced forensics class. We now offer remote teaching as well as in the classroom. This summer we won't have it, but we'll continue again. We took a break this summer. And it's the Genealogy Certificate Program, which prepares a whoever it is, a student, to become a board certified genealogist. We have attorneys take it, we have PIs take it, we have genealogists that want to advance take it. There's quite a few people out there. Also, there's something called a Council for Forensic Genealogy down in Texas, and they are more a practicum. They really teach you more how to set up a practice, how to run cases smoothly, how to give expert testimony. We do some of that, but we're more, I'd say university oriented. And I know I co-teach my class with a private investigator that talks about some of the practical aspects of setting up and being a forensic genealogist. But when I get hold of my class, I go off-roading. I just throw all these really fascinating cases out, and we just have a ball and think for the other half of the week. So as much as I say my co-teacher, Marianne Boyle, has set up the rules, I say now the rest of the week we're going to break them all. And everything is fair game, outside the box. Let me show you some weird stuff that happened, and I really want you to be so excited you can't sleep at night, and that's generally what happens.
Are police officers getting this training? I'm sure individual police officers may go to these certificate programs, but are they receiving training either at the FBI Academy or at police academies at all to utilize genealogy as a tool in criminal investigations?
I really honestly don't think so. I think that there's two communities, the forensics and the genealogists. And I can't say they're very comfortable with one another. So I know that, there's policemen that are genealogists. You can't, and there's genealogists that are policemen. And there's some forensic people like me that, kind of dabble in across the line there. But the two communities really don't mix that much, at least not now.
Okay. All right. And why do you suppose they don't mix?
Well, there's a lot of, a lot of reluctance, a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of, oh my God, the big brother is going to have my DNA. Government is going to have my DNA. Oh my God, that type of thing. I think that one should be careful and judicious on, law enforcement whose DNA they actually have taken for crimes and stuff. I think that that's important, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And at the same time, the genealogists have to be cognizant of the fact that, they need to help if there's a crime there. They can, maybe perhaps help the officer understand DNA or something like that. So I think that there's a discomfort that really people should talk about and come to terms with. At this time, I don't think law enforcement's really into genealogy per se. Although I'd say on occasion they probably hire a genealogist to help out with something or other.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've worked with some police departments and sheriff's departments. Did they come to you or did you go to them?
Both ways. I go to the forensic meeting, so people know who I am. So somebody will come up and talk to me about working a case or something, or sometimes my brother's a policeman, so sometimes he asks me what I'm doing and he tells somebody else. So it's when you live in a world, you talk to people and they talk to you. So sometimes people just come to me and sometimes I happen to meet them through other people. And I say, I'm a forensic genealogist. Do you have a case, that you're working on, or tell me what's going on? So sometimes we collaborate, sometimes we don't.
Very good. Very good. If somebody's interested, there's a lot of people who study genealogy as a pastime, or well, I guess maybe that's how you started, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I come from New Orleans, and I knew all four grandparents until my adulthood. So you can't help but fall into loving family history when you grow up around living history like that. So I became, very involved in family research. Just plain listening to the stories, as a child, knowing the grandparents, and they talk about their grandparents. So that's how I got started. But as you introduced me, I'm a rocket scientist. So a rocket scientist really can't have a hobby. You have to turn it into a profession or an obsession or some kind of, thing that you really are transfixed by, and that's what happened with my genealogy. I wrote the books, and then immediately I started working for, almost right away, I got hired by an international investment company to find owners of unclaimed property all over the world. And in that regard,
Owners of unclaimed property?
yeah, because the states have lists of people with accounts that have been abandoned for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or there's houses that have gone up for taxes, or something where if the owner is found and can be reunited with their assets, there's a commission that can be had by the person that makes that. So there was a company that hired me to go and find, but they only hired me for the really tough cases, and I did mostly my work was international, and between that, I got a really high percentage. They'd hire me when they got stuck, and I probably did 80 to 100 cases for them all over the world, and I found people under rocks. It was really amazing. One of them was a bag lady in Buenos Aires who had been married to a rich husband, and he died and the family disowned her, and she wound up on the streets of Buenos Aires picking up cardboard for a living at night. And she had no phone, no heat, no electricity, no water in her apartment, her shack. And she found out her husband still had some piece of property in the United States that now she owned. So I found her on the streets of Buenos Aires. So I had a lot of fun doing that, you know. That company went out of business, unfortunately.
Let me tell our visitors that, you know, Dr. Fitzpatrick is certainly a friend of this show. Not only is this the second time she's been a guest, but she's always thinking of different ideas for topics and different people. And I got to mention that on April 9th, we have a guest coming on, thanks to you, Colleen, for telling me about this program, and that's NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Person System. On any given day in the United States, there are between 80,000 and 90,000 individuals actively reported missing to the National Crime Information Center, which is the FBI database. It is estimated, and I'm reading this, that there are 40,000 unidentified decedents recovered throughout the United States, with an additional 1,000 unidentified bodies being added to this number each year. This missing and unidentified person problem in the United States has been deemed our nation's silent mass disaster. Now, NamUs, which again you introduced me to the name and the organization, is a government organization, and you introduced me to Todd Matthews, who's the director of NamUs's communication and case management, and we're really excited. He's out of Texas, and on April 9th, he's going to tell us all about NamUs and what they do and how they work with police. Have you worked with them before as a genealogist?
You mean NamUs?
NamUs, yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to say, yeah, NamUs is open to everybody. You know, they get their cases from law enforcement. You know, that's who uploads them. But in reality, anybody can go to NamUs, I think NamUs.gov, NAMUS.gov, set up a free account and research, you know, missing persons or unidentified remains. I've helped, you know, unidentified remains, or sometimes they even know who they are, but the bodies are not claimed. There's a big genealogy group, unclaimedbodies.org, I think, that works with them. But I've gone in casually, and I'm from Louisiana, and I've seen, you know, some people that were unclaimed, but they knew the relatives, they just didn't know where they were. And I did a few cases out of New Orleans because that's where I'm from. And it was just, you know, one evening or a few evenings when I had time. So really, I have worked with them, but anybody can. You know, I've been up to the Center for Human Identification at North Texas University. You know, I know all the people there. I've given talks there before. So in an informal sense, I work with them, but just in my spare time, anybody can go to that website and help out. NamUs was under the auspices of North Texas University. I think Todd is still working. I think that is still, you know, they're in charge of that. I think Todd is working with them on that.
Correct, correct. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. And I sent him after you all introduced me to him at the academy meeting. I came back. I sent him an email, and he came back to me and said, "Hey, more than happy to be on the show." So we're excited
Yeah,
about that.
he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. I'm glad you're doing that because that's an important thing to get the word out about NamUs.
Good. Well, Colleen, I want to thank you very much. I'm looking at the time. We only got a few minutes, but before I say goodbye to you, got a couple of things I wanted to mention. Just yesterday, I received an email from a young gentleman named Luis from Barcelona, Spain. And he said, "Excuse me, I hope you can help me." He speaks pretty good English, but he's doing a project in high school, and he likes forensic science, and he wants to try to dispel the CSI effect, and says there's a lot of false information out there about forensic science, and I want to do my project on that. And he had seen an article that I was mentioned in on the CSI effect, and he asked if I could help him in any way. So I sent him an email back and told him, hey, there's a number of shows that I've done that talk about that. And I mentioned specifically the show on junk science, which was episode 52, junk science in the courtroom with defense attorney Dorothy Sims, who was one of the defense attorneys in the Casey Anthony case. So anyways, I told him to look at that, and if he had any other questions. Well, he sent me this really nice email, and I got to read it to you. It says, "Hi Tom, it's Luis again from Barcelona. First, I want to say thank you very much for answering the email of a concern from a foreign boy like me. I watched the whole episode 52 of ForensicWeek.com, and I made a look to your YouTube channel as well, also the Forensic IQ website. All the topics you have spoken about in the show interest me. Seriously, I'm so much motivated on the forensic science field now that I have discovered your channel. As a student and a teenager, I want to express my congratulations on doing that, because it really helps people like me to get to know how the real world is going on. It opened my mind, and of course, I will watch all the episodes. These episodes will help me a lot to build my work and to know better some of the fake science appearing in fiction. I really like your show, and the feedback you have with students like me is amazing compared with one that occurs in Europe. I wish I could go to a real American forensic laboratory." And he talks about how his dream is to come to the United States and study here in one of the universities. But it's really nice to get an email like that from somebody from another part of the world that's interested in forensic science, and that ForensicWeek.com is not only of interest to him, but has truly made a difference for him, and is certainly helping him in his project. So I thought I would share that. Before we go, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to mention that our next show is March 26th. I really said that like a Bostonian, didn't I? March 26th, if I may say that. Very interesting. This is the first time we're going to be presenting a show that deals specifically with a product, and the product is called CrimePad. And I learned about CrimePad at the AAFS conference in Orlando. It's a professionally graded iPad, Windows, app that allows every law enforcement user to record, track, maintain, collaborate, and the key word is collaborate, and report all data within a criminal investigation. So this is a software package that allows all the players in an investigation, from the crime scene to the crime lab, as they're conducting their examination, taking photographs, doing sketches, writing reports. All of this is entered into CrimePad, so all the different players can see what each other is doing. And I think this is vital because one of the biggest problems I've seen when I'm working for the defense is when the police and the various police agencies, the uniform division and the detectives and the evidence technicians and the prosecutors, they're not talking to each other, they're not reading each other's reports, and CrimePad is a tool that might make a difference. So I've invited the folks from Visionations, which is the LLC, Jeff Gervis and Dr. Jane Homier, who is retired from the FBI Academy, to come and talk about this. So that's going to be on March 26th. April 23rd, we're going to have a real deal CSI professional, somebody who does this 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, evidence technician, Lorena Hoffman. She's a certified senior crime scene analyst with Suffolk Police Department in Suffolk, Virginia. Again, a colleague of mine, somebody I see once a year at the AEFS conference, and I asked her if she'd be on the show, and her agency said it was okay. So I appreciate having her on, and that'll be on April 23rd. So we have a number of shows coming up. Unless we tell you otherwise, they're on Thursday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that's not necessarily a requirement as we go along, because we're trying to get the best guests we can, like Dr. Fitzpatrick. I do also want to mention to you that the International Association of Identification is having their 100th anniversary training conference in August in Sacramento, California, and they have asked ForensicWeek.com to come and actually broadcast some shows live that week. So we're going to be broadcasting probably at least 3 separate shows on 3 different venues within the conference. So really excited about that. I want to thank President Steve Johnson, who we've had on the show, for asking us to do that. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and that truly is a very large forensic science organization also. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. Laura, thank you for producing the show. Colleen, thank you again for taking time out of a busy schedule. I know you're on your way to another country to do some work, and we appreciate you taking the time. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching ForensicWeek.com. Right here, please visit our channel at ForensicWeek.com, and we now have all our 73 shows in various categories, so it's much easier for you to pick and choose what shows that you might want to see. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here, and thank you for watching.